The Defenders Episode 1. The first thing I noticed in The Defenders Episode 1, other than that they were calling it series instead of season, it's very British. Which I guess makes sense, because it's a streaming service. Doesn't really come out over the course of a season. At least it's one series at a time. So fair play there. But the first thing I noticed in the actual episode was that they started with a little bit of action. Really the only action in the episode for the most part. Which, first of all, was kind of misleading, because starting with action, you're like, oh, they're going to get right into it. But the thing that really bothered me about that was I was watching the action, and immediately I was like, you get so used to like the Daredevil like one shot thing, and even though they don't do one shot a whole lot, that was kind of novelty in the Daredevil and Daredevil season 2, and it was fantastic novelty in both of those. But you get used to them trying to strike the tone of not a lot of cuts during the action, because even in the other series where there weren't necessarily as many like dramatic one-shot takes or things like that, there's less cuts, I feel, or less noticeable cuts. And immediately, as soon as the first action scene hits at the beginning of this, I'm like, I can't see what's going on. There are so many cuts. It's like the Hunger Games out there, less shaky, but just there's just so many cuts, and I was like, oh, I hope we're gonna be able to see the action in this series, because that's not good. But yeah, it was the first episode, so it was really expositional, which you expect, but there are a couple problems with how expositional it is. The first problem is that it's almost like there was this debate where like somebody in the room was like, we definitely want to show you where all the Defenders are in life now, which is fine. That exposition is fine. But somebody like over the side almost seemed to be going like, for people who are watching the Defenders first, let's put in little bits about who they are. And it's like, if you don't know who they are at all, you shouldn't be watching the Defenders. You go back and watch the other series. I would not recommend you watch this, if you haven't watched the other series. So, or at least most of them or part of them or something. I don't know, but it seemed it's really unnecessary to tell us who these people are. This is what, the 6th series. This builds on 5 other series, so I don't need to waste time filling in people who don't know. They had 5 seasons to figure out who these people are. So, and the other part with the exposition that was a real problem was that it was really unsatisfying because it went on for too long. There's only 8 episodes in this series 1 of the Defenders. There's only 8 episodes, and I expected a lot of this episode to be exposition, and then at some point they're going to be like, here's the climax of the episode, and now we're really, satisfying. We spent a lot of time laying groundwork, but satisfying conclusion to episode 1. At the end of episode 1, I was not satisfied. Maybe they felt that they could pace it differently, because it's a series that a lot of people are going to binge watch, and I'm going to start the second episode right when I'm done doing this, but it wasn't satisfying, and that was weird. It was weird that they were like, well, we don't need to make the end of the first episode satisfying, really. And the dialogue, the other real main problem is the dialogue is not good. Luckily for them, some of the acting is good enough to, cover for that, or even elevate it at points. But overall, the dialogue is not good. And even though, like somebody like Charlie Cox, who's really gotten into he's had 2 seasons, and he was always good casting. So him being Daredevil, or Matt Murdock, he really isn't affected as much by the bad dialogue because he kind of works around it. His acting is better than it. But if that remains the case, if the dialogue remains bad for the rest of the season, or series 1, it's not going to be good. At some point it will become a serious problem, and I'm terrified about who it might affect. It might affect the villains, which the villains have always been strong in the Netflix series. It's one of the things people always criticize the Marvel Cinematic Universe villains for being weak, but Kingpin was really strong, and David Tennant was really strong in Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. All the villains were mostly really strong for the most part. So I'm kind of terrified that their weak writing might affect the villains. And the hierarchy still kind of exists that I think a lot of people have in their minds, where they're like, here's how good certain series characters are at acting and everything like that. And, you know, it's like Charlie Cox at the top, and then, you got Luke Cage and Jessica Jones right below him, both in the same general area, being really good. And then Iron Fist kind of below that. And I don't hate it. I like Iron Fist a lot more than a lot of other people liked Iron Fist. But the bad dialogue is most noticeable in that, I think. And some of the Jessica Jones scenes, it's more notable. But there's nothing against Kristen Ritter. Kristen Ritter is great. But David Tennant was really amazing in that series. And I'm glad that they've announced that he's coming back for season 2. So... I mean, Kristen Ritter is good. She does get past it, you know. It's just at the beginning, there's some dialogue that's so bad, I'm just like, what are they doing here? But so that's episode 1, and I'm interested to see what happens in episode 2. Not for the reasons I thought I'd be. You know, I thought I'd be kind of excited, but I'm not really. I'm just kind of like, no. I'm going to watch the whole series, I'm interested, I'm invested, you know, from the first 5 seasons. But if I had watched this as the first episode and I didn't know anything about it, I'd be like, I don't really understand why this is great. You know, it's good, there's good elements to it, but and they do a good job with there's 2 sides of like the directing production stuff. The actual directing with all the cuts and everything, a couple of times it actually like made me kind of like sick or dizzy. That's how kind of weird and bad it was at certain points. And but they do, and I give people a lot of credit for this lately. I'm giving people more and more credit, so I'm going to give the Defenders credit for it. They get the color schemes nailed perfectly, you know. There is that tonal shift between all of them. Kind of the Daredevil white and red thing, the Jessica Jones blue, purple, black thing, the Luke Cage yellow thing, and then the Iron Fist kind of greeny, yellowy thing. All of those are present in the scenery and how the thing is filmed. It's all very, very well done there. So somebody was paying attention there, so that's good. So hopefully the second episode will be better. This episode was okay. We'll see what happens.